lot of companies have branches, and each branch may manage their own data stores, and they may not be talking to one another. Now, this is a big problem for AI because it's not seeing data holistically. It's just getting like snapshots here, snapshots there. That can cause a lot of downstream problems to models. Models can become biased. Your solution will be very unreliable. If you take data from branch a model trained on data from branch A, and apply it to branch B, that model may not work. So having that holistic view of your data stores is very, very critical for mid-sized to large companies. So that's the data readiness element. And we can go like, as you're building your data readiness, you'll have more and more things to look into. So it's not a one and done thing. It's an ongoing process. You keep refining your data readiness.
Welcome to AI Ketchup, the podcast catching up with the tech products that matter in the AI era.
Hi everyone, welcome to the AI Ketchup, where we decode the real journeys behind building with AI and solving the real world problems. I'm your host Elina, and today we are with Kavita Ganesan, who has been building solutions for Fortune 500 companies like and eBay, and then she has transformed her expertise into her consultancy work. She has also created the frameworks on the business case for AI. And that is something that she has also brought to her book that I'm very glad to have very close to me on my working table. Kavita, welcome to the show.
Nice. Thank you for having me, Alina. Good to be here.
My pleasure as well. You have had a very interesting journey from, well, starting with developing back then clustering algorithms for eBay and then becoming a chief AI strategist, and also delivering different programs and initiatives right now for mid and large size organizations, starting with the US Department of Energy and then McKesson, as well as the University of Sydney. I would be curious to learn, when was the time that on all these different career stations of yours, you have realized that, well, there is indeed the not only scientific case or not only fun case, but also the business case for AI?
Yeah, so let me go back to my journey in AI. I really started with AI in like 2005 when I was doing my master's program at the University of Southern California. So I joined a general computer science program, but I started taking a lot of NLP classes because they were offering it quite widely within that university. So as I was taking that classes, I was really hooked with this whole area of NLP. And that's what really got me into AI as a field. And then I started working as a research assistant at that time. I was doing a lot of research projects, and that got me really interested in the applications of AI. So when I graduated, I joined eBay as a full-time software engineer, but I was still doing a lot of AI on the side. So I was going to AI conferences, I was building prototypes. I was still very interested in AI, but it was not really a thing in the industry that time. It was very an academic research concept. So, but I still wanted to pursue it. So I went on to doing my PhD in AI focused on NLP, search learning. So everything to do with text data processing, I was in it. Then after my PhD, as I was about to graduate, the whole big data space started to take off. That was like 2011, 2013, where AI was starting to become popular within companies. So instead of going and becoming a professor or joining as a research scientist, I thought, hey, this is my time to start applying what I've learned in research within companies' actual business problems. I joined companies like 3M, GitHub, and I started solving a bunch of like real world problems. And some of them I did based on my own interest. Some of them I did for production type problems. I mean, real problems for the company. So I built a lot of skills during that time, which taught me how to really build solutions that actually solve problems. So that's where started codifying a lot of the things that I've learned, which is what you see in the book, The Business Case for AI. And as I was doing this, other companies started reaching out to get my help to implement AI in their companies. So then I got even more experience. So I just kept over time building and building and building this experience by basically serving in different roles, like really in the weeds and then up to more strategic level. because now I can see both sides. I can see the business side and I can also see the technical side. So I'm kind of a translator between these two worlds. But it didn't come immediately, it came over time by working in different roles.
It does make sense, and I can also see that there are different interesting elements that you have brought to the book with regards to how companies can bring AI adoption forward. Something that has really caught my attention was B-CIDS Framework. I hope that I pronounced it correctly.
Yeah,
So the budget, culture, infrastructure, data, and skills.
skills,
So
yeah.
five elements that are in certain order structured so that companies can see the readiness for starting with AI workloads.
Hmm.
Could you walk us through this framework and how, let's say, the owner of a mid-sized company that is, for whatever reason, the example that comes up to my mind right now is producing tractors in more agricultural and machinery space,
Hmm.
how this owner of the company could apply big hits to his tractor
Yeah.
factory?
I think even though we have like five preparation pillars, the first two is where companies really need to start focusing on. That is data readiness and cultural readiness. So if you look at data readiness, a lot of the older companies, some of them are still like operating based off of paper processes. So the first thing to do is to try to digitize those papers because then that data can then be used for analytics and AI. And then a lot of companies, they're kind of collecting data, but not really. They might be collecting data from the daily running of the business, like purchases and orders and those type of sales data, but not things that might be within the social media platforms. They're not bringing it in-house. So the data collection is very scattered, I would say. So looking into how you're collecting data currently would also be a very critical step in data readiness. But then the third thing to look into is if you're a mid-sized to large company is data warehousing. So a lot of companies have branches and each branch may manage their own data stores and they may not be talking to one another. Now, this is a big problem for AI because it's not seeing data holistically. It's just getting like snapshots here, snapshots there. And that can cause a lot of downstream problems to models, like models can become biased. Your solution will be very unreliable. If you take data from branch a model trained on data from branch A, and apply it to branch B, that model may not work. So having that holistic view of your data stores is very, very critical for mid-sized to large companies. So that's the data readiness element. And as you're building your data readiness, you'll have more and more things to look into. So it's not a one and done thing. It's an ongoing process. You keep refining your data readiness. Then if you look at cultural readiness, so if you take a company, you'll have two groups. One would be the really enthusiastic group of AI users. They want AI in every workflow. And then you have the group that's really fearful of AI, especially if you go down the company ranks. If you go to the developer side, they are really fearful of AI because they think that their jobs are going to be cut off. So you have the fear and you have the enthusiasm. But both of it can be risky if it's not based on reality. So, for example, if the enthusiastic group does not understand the risks of AI, they might deploy tools that may put the company at severe risk. And that so AI literacy really comes into play when it comes to cultural readiness because it can put fears at bay. It can help people understand the risks of AI, help them collaborate better. So at the foundation of cultural readiness is AI literacy, which needs to be looked into. And I'm talking about these two pillars because these two take the longest to implement and plan. So this is where you want to start. The other pillars like skills, these are things you can hire, you can experiment with, and it's more predictable, I would say. But data and culture is something that's for the long term.
Yeah, and something that definitely stands out to me with regards to exactly these five categories of budget, culture, infrastructure, data, and skills is that only one of them is not something to have because you can have budget, you can have certain infrastructure, you can have certain skill set and people that are possessing the skill set, you can have data warehouse. But when it comes to culture, it doesn't feel like you can have it. It is something that you proactively build with each and every step.
Yeah.
And if we would come back again to to the companies that are in the beginning of their journey? Well, they understand that they might bring certain things into digital format. They already have data workloads that are close to
Mhm.
big data workloads.
Yeah.
However, for them, it doesn't look like bringing AI on the purpose, like pushing it top down, would be bringing so many benefits. And if there would be some low hanging fruits, then probably they would already approach that. But there might be not that many visible. Do you think that it is something for each and every business owner to think about? Do you see something that the leaders of the companies should keep in their mind if they are thinking that, well, AI is not yet that well adopted in my company?
Yeah, I think for leaders, what they really need to be focusing on is their problems. So, what is really plaguing different business functions? Is it inefficiencies? Is it customer feedback that is really going south? So, the problems will inform what type of software solutions you might need. And within those solutions, you might need some form of AI. So, the solution itself might be a big software solution, but parts of it only may use AI. I wouldn't recommend that leaders focus solely on finding if AI is a suitable tool for them. They should go after the problems. So find all the problems, figure out what is the big picture solution for those problems. And then as you dig in, that's when you get a picture of whether AI is really a tool that you can use to solve these problems. Because it's hard for them to know, like, AI is applicable here, AI is applicable there. It's not like where you just use ChatGPT to do personal productivity things. It's more like workflows, processes.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And what I have also observed, and the concrete sentences that I have not once heard from C-suite of various companies of different sizes, is something like, there is this new trend, right? And we would be very happy to bring it to the company. So let me actually hire certain data scientists, and well, if they are innovative enough, they will solve certain things. At the same time, not knowing what problem the data scientist would be solving. Is
Yeah.
it also something that you're observing? Why do you think it
Yeah.
is the trend to approach the AI transformation in this way? And how would you be doing it differently?
Yeah, I see that a lot. So big companies bring in a team of data scientists and expect them to find the problems. But the problem with that is the data scientists, they don't understand the business challenges. So what they're going to do is they're going to find problems where either they have data for model training. So they'll look into your data store, see what data you have, what models they can train. And a lot of times, once they've trained the model, they don't have a consumer for that tool because it's not really solving a real problem. So what they do is they go about like demoing their solution, trying to get buyers to buy into the solution that they've built. So this is a waste of time and resources. And now with tools that they can easily use, like all the large language models, the ability to build on top of ChatGPT, you don't even need data. You can just start building cool tools and start demoing. It's not really solving problems. I see data scientists shopping around to leadership teams trying to get their buy-in, but leadership teams then push back and say, why do we really need this? It's cool, it's great, it's nice, but why do we need this? What problem does it solve? So a better way of doing this is to actually meet in the middle. So once you have like a problem, you found a problem, you have lots of customer complaints, and a software solution might be the answer. So maybe to digest all the complaints, figure out what people are talking about, and then turn that into features. So as you dig into the problem and you have your data science team also helping dig into the problem, they might say that, hey, we can actually extract the key themes within all this data. And the software team can build the overall tool to access that model's findings. So they need to be working in collaboration on problems to find where AI might be applicable or where there's just a software engineering problem that has a better alignment with business needs rather than just putting them on data and expecting them to come up with.
For those companies that have indeed gotten the management buy-in, and the data scientists have gotten their approval for working on something exciting, and they are currently having the AI pilots running,
Mhm.
would you see the trends in terms of when this AI pilots fail and what are the important things to take into consideration for those AI pilots?
I've seen lots of pilots fail actually. The problem that I recently saw was this company built a prototype, but it was tied into all of the third party OpenAI's API. So they're spending a lot in a month. And they're going to send their data to OpenAI's API, which they don't know if their data will be used for training or how their data is going to be handled on the other side. So third party application. So now that they've built this prototype, they want to pilot it, but it's just too expensive to deploy. When they built it, it was pretty much free. They spent a few $100s a month just testing. Now it's in the thousands, like 5,000, 6,000, just for one AI prototype. So the things that they're not thinking about is cost. The biggest factor is cost and constraints. Like, should this data leave our database or should it be within our company's firewalls? So the risks of such applications. And the way I tend to work with clients is I want to know what are their constraints. So are we talking budget? Are we talking that it needs to operate locally? All of that will inform what models I use. So a lot of my clients will say, I don't want any data going out to the internet. So then I'll have to find local models. So that kind of constrains the development. And most of the solutions we develop goes into production because it's built for that use case. We're already taking production needs into account during development. So there's a higher chance of making it into production.
Yeah, so working with a series of constraints does make sense and probably is very reasonable even on the early stages of a certain product.
Yeah.
What I'm also having in mind is that in the book, I remember that the success evaluation of certain AI pilot is something that you have given 3 measurements for. So, model performance, business outcomes, and then the success on the user side.
User, yeah. A lot of times when data scientists are developing an AI model or a tool using existing models, they're focused on the software working or the success of the model. So what I mean by model success is the accuracy of the model. So is it delivering on the task that it would do? Like if you take a recommendation engine, is it creating appropriate recommendations given the user's preferences? So they are focused on model success. So let's take this example of recommendation engine. So let's say the data scientist finds that it has 80% recall, 90% precision, and it's ready to put into production. So they feel comfortable like deploying this model. So once this model goes into production, okay, it's generating recommendations and people are using it. But what is it that we are measuring? What is it that it's improving? So this is where the business success comes in. So maybe this is an increase in revenue. So how do you measure that? This can be an increase in add to cart rate or the overall purchase value. So that's why business success becomes really important. So model is not the end, model is a means to achieving something else, which is the business success. But now let's say they've deployed this model, it's in production, users are using it, but the recommendations are at the bottom of the page. And the users like it, but they feel it adds friction to their workflow because they have to scroll to the bottom to get the recommendations. And how do you know this? This is through asking the user. So this is where the user success pillar comes into play. And by asking users about whether they like the tool or not, the AI solution or not, then this opens up a plethora of problems that you might not have encountered during development or deployment. So they may tell you that it's too hard to use it. That's a risk that they may not use it over the long term. And there's also the risk that you're not generating as much revenue as you could have if you had put that solution at the top. So it reveals a lot of problems that you might not have seen without talking to the user. So that's why model success, business success, and user success are important. They need to come together to make sure that the whole AI initiative succeeds.
Understand the flow Even though I think that that was the Amazon working backwards approach that was always so deeply ingrained into the products that AWS has been always building. Definitely, the user is the king or the
Hmm.
queen, and they are put into the focus. So for me, probably the flow would actually start with users, and then
Hmm.
understanding that well that works for them, and then we would be seeing all the other aspects. That is why for me it was very interesting to see that you indeed start with model performance, and then for me it will also mean that probably it is easier also to approach this from the perspective of first working with data scientists and understanding how within their scope the model is performing, and then probably going into certain decision makers, and then indeed validating that with users. That is probably the flow of estimation of the success in your.
Yes, yes. And the requirements definitely come from the user. So either directly or by understanding their needs, you're building a tool, assuming that this is what you need, and then going back to them and saying, hey, does this work for you? So, yeah.
If there would be one use case that is the one that you think, oh yeah, that is the one that each and every company needs and actually should apply and adopt AI with that use case, would you have something that is the one that you go for when different companies approach you?
Yeah. So I would say my favorites are not domain, but sector specific. So for e-commerce, my biggest recommendation for like getting experience with AI is recommendation system, because you have room to make mistakes. The first answer doesn't need to be correct. The correct answer can be in the first three recommendations and it will still look good. And also it's easy to measure once it goes into production. And I think it adds a lot of value in the form of like stickiness, engagement, revenue. So it has many benefits. That's my go-to for like e-commerce, internet based companies. So I have one for every business function, every sector, I would say.
So it's not the internal GPT that will be bringing the efficiency up of.
I think ChatGPT might be useful in the cases of marketing, in a business function of marketing. ChatGPT can be very helpful for content creation, like really rapid content creation. And if you tweak it well enough, it will actually sound like you. So there is really a possible productivity improvement there. But that's just one business function. So there are lots of different areas where different tools come into play, not just ChatGPT. And the nice thing with the other tools outside of generative AI is that they're a lot more predictable. So you know what it's going to predict. And the risks are much lower. It's easier to develop, easier to deploy, and easier to get value from.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
And it does make sense. The value that you're getting out of it is very close in the intersection of this triangle of employees that are building something, the business needs, and then also of making users happier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
probably that's why it is a good match. Yeah, makes sense. If I would open up a bit of a darker side of working with machine learning and artificial intelligence, and would ask you on the situations where, well, maybe certain projects and certain customers have actually kept up to you at night because either you have been concerned about people losing their jobs, maybe because you have been working with very critical, sensitive data, maybe because it was in the healthcare segment where certain
Yeah.
prediction might have been impacting human lives very, very directly. Was there something that has been indeed impacting you from the personal side?
Yes.
And how
Yeah.
did you address that?
So quite a few actually. Then a thing that keeps me up is I get a lot of requests from potential clients wanting to use LLMs for all sorts of different things without understanding the risks to their workflow. Like they don't understand that it can make up facts. We don't have fact checking mechanisms in real time within like ChatGPT. So it gives the sources, but we don't know for sure if those sources were actually used. And despite me trying to educate them that, hey, maybe let's take a step back, let's look at your problem closely, and let's see how it works on your data. and what is the hallucination problem like on your specific data sources. So they don't want those additional steps. They just want to go direct to the latest and greatest LLM. That really keeps me up at night and keeps me wanting to improve how I communicate these risks so that they actually listen.
At the same time, I think that is still very positive that people want to approach something new, right? And diving deeper into it and considering whether that is the option to bring to customer facing applications or employee facing applications is crucial. We do also want to have innovators within companies. And if we don't give those people the chance to innovate, and they have been doing the same type of work for 20 years, and then currently, oh yeah, they have gotten this idea. I'm also thinking about how not to demotivate and how to let the innovation
Yeah.
flow going. Maybe not think about just LLMs, maybe think about something different.
No, I think within constrained environments, you can go hard on your research, push the boundaries as much as you can. But within a constrained environment where you're just testing, you're not putting things into users' hands. So you understand what's possible, what are the limitations, what are the risks. So understand that clearly, take your learnings and then turn that into a product. That should absolutely happen. But a lot of people already have preconceived notion that this is the route I want to take and I don't want any other tool. That's the risky part, I feel.
Yeah, yeah. Is there something that you would be willing to let the listeners with as the last message of our episode today?
Last message would be to take two steps back for every idea that you have before you take many steps forward, just to understand what you are building. If you're building a tool, what is it that you're building, what problem you are actually solving, and what are the benefits for you. Think about the benefits to the company or to your workflow before you jump in. Don't jump straight into the fire.
Well, I guess if someone jumps in and says the benefits don't appear, then it won't be also a long jump. Thanks a lot for your time, Kavita. I will include the link to the business case for AI in the show notes, as well as the website of yours on showcasing the work that you're doing. Thanks for tuning in. And that has been an AI Ketchup, where we make AI journeys digestible.